I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a greener world, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. New York City. It's considered the most densely populated city in America. And with over 8 million mouths to feed, it's no surprise that some people are looking for new ways to provide high-quality, locally grown produce. But what is a surprise, some people are looking to grow that food up on rooftops rather than open fields. But by utilizing this untapped resource, now the distance that food travels from farm to fork can be measured in city blocks rather than miles. Plus, the community gets to experience a working farm right in their own neighborhood. Large rooftop farms are considered a new concept for New York, but a unique twist on the urban agriculture model. At the forefront of this new model are 4 entrepreneurs who founded Brooklyn Grange Rooftop Farm, which is currently the largest commercial rooftop farm in America. Although they have Brooklyn in their name, their flagship farm sits atop an old auto parts factory in Queens and is 40,000 square feet in size, which is roughly an acre. They recently added a second, larger location on top of an old naval shipyard building. Their goal is to provide an urban rooftop farming model that can be replicated anywhere in the world and to educate urban dwellers about where their food comes from. Ben Flanner heads up the team that developed Brooklyn Grange.
We have 2 rooftop farms. One is in Long Island City, where we have 1 acre. It's on top of a 6-story building. We started it in 2010 and we are halfway through our 3rd growing season. The other farm is right here. It's a 65,000 square foot roof, which is 1.5 acres in the Brooklyn Navy Yard here in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. On the farm we grow a great variety. We have tomatoes, salad greens, kale, chard, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, squash, different herbs, pretty much everything that you expect to see at a typical farm. It makes sense because salad mix is something that maybe doesn't transport very well. So especially being right here in the city, close to so many different people, it's very practical that we can come up with really fresh greens mixes that last, well over a week in people's fridge, super fresh picked, super healthy and taste good. I became interested in farming and decided I wanted to make a career change. I come from an engineering background. And I wasn't immediately drawn or seeing like some vision of rooftop farming. Started talking about with friends, realizing I was a little bit nervous about leaving the city. And also just kind of looking at all these open spaces, all this flat roof space, and learning about some of the environmental benefits of green roofs. That led us to start pursuing the idea of rooftop farming. We need the farms to be big, but not too big, and we definitely need a certain amount of scale, which is why we don't have any farms that are specific locations that are less than 1 acre. My engineering and numbers background helped out a lot with us putting together the business plan, as we realized that a certain amount of area could produce a certain amount of vegetables and transfer those into sales. So we needed to get a certain amount of area that could produce enough to support a farm. When we started the farm, one of our main goals was to show that we could create a model that could be replicated, that could be used around other parts of this city, other parts of this country, or even other parts of this world. To grow great food, to have an operation that can pay its bills and stand on its own 2 feet, and at the same time to have an immense amount of benefits to the community and to the environment around it. What we've created is 2.5 acres of organic farming and small farming, and it's very manually intensive. It's very crop intensive, but we're putting out large yields and we're making it work. At the end of the day, it's really exciting to see how much output, how much pounds of delicious produce comes out of this farm. in an organic way, from organic soil without use of any chemical pesticides or fertilizers. There's a lot involved in starting a rooftop farm. I guess the fundamental first thing that you're going to look at is the strength of the roof. And we've gotten a pretty strong model, and we know the weight of the soil, we know it in pounds per square foot, and then we can also quickly assess the strength of a roof. We can get a pretty good impression with our eye, and then we call in a structural engineer that can assess it and confirm that it can hold the weight of the soil that we want. The second component is the green roof system, which goes down right above the basic membrane of the roof. And then above that is the compost. And the compost we put a lot of effort into because it's also a green roof medium with the lightweight stones blended into. And we spent a lot of time working with different academics and soil scientists, trying to improve the cation exchange capacity of it, getting the pH in the right spot, etc. Really working on some of the chemistry of the soil in order that we can start out our farm with a pretty top-notch growing medium. And then it's our job as the organic farmers to take care of it, compost, continue to add to it, grow wise things, and encourage microbial activity. Since we started the farm, there's been a number of things that have been surprises that have kind of, the farm's evolved on its own, but one of the most interesting things is the amount of people that have come to us. It's something that's difficult to find here in the city, to find agriculture, to learn about how plants grow, and to find it with the scale. And it's really been, it's been really uplifting and also very energizing for us as farmers and as the entrepreneurs that are running this operation. So at the end of the day, we've created something that's not just a farm, but a community hub, an education incubator for agriculture, and an urban park. And we're really proud of that.
Now, besides the obvious benefit that rooftop farms have for providing local food to the area, there are a lot of other benefits as well. And one of the biggest is environmental, like with stormwater management. All the water that falls on these rooftops, well, it all goes into the storm system. And those storm systems were designed decades ago, not really set up to handle the volume of water that we get from all the rooftops today. So to the extent that we can keep that water on the rooftop, we help that storm system, like by adding all of this great soil. It acts like a big giant sponge, and when you combine that with the uptake from the roots, you can keep a lot of that water right here. And in this case, that was over 1 million gallons of water retained on this roof alone just last year. And then you have the urban heat island effect. All of that heat coming off this rooftop, it could be unbearable because this is the middle of August, but really it's quite pleasant, mainly due to the fact that all of these plants on top are releasing moisture through a process called transpiration. And because it's cooler up here, it's cooler down below, and that means a lot of energy conservation.
One of the most rewarding parts of rooftop farming right here in the city where I was born and raised is having the youth in the community come up and experience this green space and connect with nature in a way that's increasingly hard for urban dwellers to do. Our first season here on the farm, I had a group from a local school up, and I said to them, "Are you guys learning about food and farming in your classroom?" And they said no, and I said, "Well, I bet you're learning about the environment." And this kid said, "Yeah, but that has nothing to do with me." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "That's out there." And he kind of gestured off the roof. And I said, "What do you mean out where?" And he said, "Out there in the country where there's trees and stuff." And it was kind of funny, but it was also a very startling moment because it really dawned on me just how alienated urban dwellers have become from their surroundings. When you take the elevator downstairs every day and then you descend into the subway and take your subway to your concrete block school, where you look out at all these other concrete blocks around you, what about that says ecosystem? And we're living in a day and age when over half the Earth's population lives in urban centers, which comprise only something like 0.2% of the Earth's surface and consume 70% of its resources. So I think it's going to become increasingly important in future generations as well to really get kids to connect with the natural world and realize that they are part of a larger global ecosystem and have a huge impact on that ecosystem. Since our first season of farming, we have steadily increased the number of interns and apprentices that we've taken on here at the farm. Our first season, if you can believe it, it was 3 of us and 1 apprentice and an amazingly hardworking intern. We now have something like 15 interns who work with us 6 to 10 hours a week, and a couple of really, really committed apprentices who are determined to learn everything there is about running a green small business in New York City. That is what we call our Urban Farmer Development Program. And it's an incredibly important part of what we do. I always say that any good farmer is also a good teacher. But as the number of farmers dwindle in the United States and we lose some of this cultural knowledge, I think it's very important to build it back up again. And of course, build up a new bank of knowledge about how to raise crops and sell crops and distribute food right here in the heart of a bustling city. We really like to be an active part of the community and open up to our neighbors so that they can enjoy the green space that we've built up here. Every week we have an open community day at each of our farms where we host a farm stand where people are welcome to come up, take a look around, ask us questions about how we're farming. We even host brunches, lunches, and dinner events on the farm for people who might want to get involved but might not want to get their hands dirty. One really challenging element of farming on a rooftop is wind. It's just so windy here. So we've devised some pretty creative staking and trellising methods, but to come up after a storm at night and come up in the morning and see everything blown over is just one of the most frustrating things about growing food. It's funny, one of the first things most people say when they come up to the farm is, "Wow, look at that view." And it's just something we rarely ever even notice because we spend all of our time looking down at our plants and at our crops. So once in a while we do have to remind ourselves to look up and take it all in and appreciate that we are in one of the most exciting cities in the world.
So Chase, you've got two really cool jobs here. You're in charge of special projects,
yes,
and you're head beekeeper, chief beekeeper, and we're standing in front of some really hip, cool beehives.
Yep.
So talk to me about the fact that these aren't your just ordinary white beehives. What's up with that?
Well, bees are very visual. They navigate more visually like the way we do instead of birds and stuff that do it differently. And we took the opportunity to consign a bunch of local New York City artists to do our hives up so that the bees will have a unique, really cool New York City condo to go back to as opposed to just typical white the way you see them in the countryside.
That is so New York.
You know.
Okay, so now this is not the rooftop where the garden is. How come these are located in a separate place?
Well, we had the opportunity here in the Brooklyn Navy Yard to essentially set these up anywhere we want within the 300 acres of the yard. This particular location is only 100 feet from the visitor center and the cafe, which overlooks us from behind us. Yeah. So we wanted these here for visitors to the Brooklyn Navy Yard to be able to see bees kind of at a distance but close up, feel safe about it, watch us when we're doing hive checks. So it's kind of like the demonstration exhibition space.
And how far away are these from the main garden area?
So the main garden area is literally right there. If you look up about 400 feet, that's where the main farm is. And then our 30 more agricultural industrial hives are out on a pier in the East River about 10 minutes from here.
Okay, so Mr. Special Projects, how profitable are these relative to everything else that's growing on the rooftop? Because you have, you know, maybe 6 or 8 hives here.
Well, on a per square foot basis, and remember in urban farming, it's all about per square foot, if not per square inch. Per square foot basis, honey from these hives is our most profitable crop. Reason being is that New York City honey right now is going for upwards of $40 a pound.
$40 a pound? It's like, I thought the top growing rate was like 15 bucks a pound.
And for really good country honey, you know, from a small beekeeper, that's what you should expect to pay. New York City, 5-borough honey, it's what the market will bear. I can't necessarily say it's better or worse. It just is what it is.
Okay.
And take into account an average hive takes up about 3 square feet in footprint and produces between 50 and 100 pounds of honey in a season.
So I would think that you would be working hard to expand this part of your business.
Yes. Luckily, I don't have to work hard to find more locations. We've got building owners all over the city who just love the shtick, as we call it, of having beehives on their roof.
Yeah.
You know, high-end fashion companies, restaurants, they all want beehives on their roof, and we're happy to supply them for them because we take the honey.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, these are very docile creatures in general.
Absolutely.
We're out here without any suits on, and we're not bothering them, and they're not bothering us. I think one of the questions a lot of people have, especially in an urban environment, is the fact, you know, we're surrounded by all this industrialization.
Right.
And you're thinking, well, you know, how does that impact the quality of the honey? Like, is it polluted or is it less quality?
Fair question. I grew up in New York City. I asked the same question, and the answer is the exact opposite of what you would normally think. The actual science has shown that honey from urban hives, not just in New York, but from hives in cities all around the world, Paris, Tokyo, and so forth.
Yeah.
The honey is cleaner, the honey is better, you know, that's a catch-all phrase, and the bees are healthier. The reason is because in the country, we're dealing with monocrops. So monocrops means we're going thousands of square miles or square hectares of corn, almonds, whatever, and there are a lot of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in use. That's what makes it into the honey.
Yep.
That's what you don't want in your honey.
Yeah.
In a location like New York, everything's ornamental,
Yep.
which is great for bees. Bees love flowering plants. Humans love flowering plants. None of those pesticides, herbicides are used.
Yep.
Everything's watered even if it's a drought, and everything's set up so that it flowers from literally spring to fall.
When you think about it, growing on a rooftop farm is pretty much like growing in straight potting soil. And if we don't manage the nutrients properly and replace them frequently, well, those nutrients can become depleted rather quickly. But the good news is we can use some of the same techniques utilized by Brooklyn Grange to keep their soil in peak condition. And it doesn't matter whether we're growing in just a container on a deck or patio or in a backyard plot, because all soil benefits from some of the same techniques. Now first, they use crop rotation, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, but essentially, it's never putting the same plant in the same place in succession. And it's a good way to help reduce the amount of nutrients that would be depleted if you were to put the same plant here time and time again. Second, they use a lot of compost and manure, like from their chickens. It's an important concept no matter where you garden, but it's a great way to get nutrients back into the soil, especially to replace those taken up by previous plants. And third, they also grow cover crops through the winter, usually clover, rye, and buckwheat. And these crops are tilled into the soil so that they add more organic matter and nutrients as well.
We have a number of different outlets for our produce here at the farm. We sell at the farmers market on the weekends. We have a CSA program with 40 members. We sell to restaurants locally. And we also have a couple of weekly farm stands on our farm. One in Brooklyn on the farm itself and one here in the building on Wednesdays. Just like any farm outside of the city, this is a business. We grow vegetables, we sell them. And also, just like most small farms, it's hard to make ends meet. We did turn a profit in our first year, but we don't pay ourselves nearly as much as we'd like to, and that's something we're working on. And as we grow, as we build more farms and get that economy of scale that you get with a larger business, we expect to increase our profits, increase our revenue, and really make sure that this business will be here to stay. Our biggest expense here is definitely labor. We don't pay too much for seed and equipment. We do most things manually. We don't use much gas. But it takes a lot of work to run an organic farm like this. We're running deliveries, we're keeping the books, we're hosting events and making sales to our restaurant partners. We're weeding by hand. So all of these things take a lot of work and a lot of time. A lot of people ask us whether or not the air pollution in the city will affect the quality of the food, whether or not it's safe to eat. To be honest, there hasn't been much research done on this, and we're currently working with some researchers at Cornell to find out exactly what is in the air and what is getting on the food. What we've learned so far is that the air up on the roof is actually much cleaner than the air down at the ground level. And just from a personal standpoint, I'm much more comfortable eating this food and feeding this food to my family than I would be feeding non-organic food that was grown conventionally throughout the U.S.
With both farms combined, Brooklyn Grange expects to produce and harvest over 40,000 pounds of fresh organic produce just this year. And along the way, they're proving that not only can a model for urban agriculture like this be profitable, but they're improving the community and the environment at the same time. If you'd like more information on urban farming or Brooklyn Grange, we have that on our website and so much more, including all the past episodes that you can watch online. The website address is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. I'm Joe Lampel. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time for more Growing a Greener World.